Now, if you closed out your project from last week and reopened it, you probably noticed that it's opening up in the third person map. What we want to do is open up the level 01 house map that we created earlier, and we want that to be set as our default. So let's start off by going to our project settings, which can be found under edit and then project settings here, or if you go to settings in the side here and you go to project settings, once that's open, you go to maps and modes. Now, mine is already set up for the level, so it's off to the left-hand side here, the level 01 house. Yours is probably set to third-person map. So go ahead and change both the editor startup map as well as the game's default map to level 01 house. And let's go ahead and close this. And now if you restart your project, it should open to this map here, which is level 01 house. All right. Now, it might look a little different than what you saw last time in the tutorial, and that's because I'm kind of always tinkering and I'm building and adding walls. So what I'd like to do is essentially move our player start position. So let's find that in our map here. To maybe outside, we'll set it, let's see, to right in front of this door here. And then what we'll do is we'll create a screen door. Now notice the direction in which these arrows are pointing. So if I press play right now, you could see that my character is facing away from the house. So an easy fix for that is if we select our player start and we go to our details panel here, you can rotate it 180 degrees. And now when I press play, you can see my character is facing the house. Very good. So let's start off by just creating a door. So I'm going to go to my modeling panel here. And what I'd like to do is inside of here, inside the wall here, I'm going to have two sliding doors that open, kind of like what you would have on some houses. So I'm going to create a box here, and I'm going to hit just escape to complete that. And then I'm going to go to poly edit and just move these in like this. And so just something like that. And actually, you know what? We'll start off with just one door. I was thinking of maybe two sliding doors, but it could just be one door that slides to the side. And I'm going to go ahead and press accept. Now notice that my pivot point is here towards the bottom. And what I'd like is I'd like it to be at the corner edge here. So I'm going to scroll down on the side here until I find my pivot, which is, I might have passed it. Let's see. Here it is, pivot. And I can actually just push, like, for example, bottom, and it's at the bottom here, and then left. And it looks like this is the correct direction of the map. Okay, so I kind of want it to be at the bottom right corner. So let's do right, and then we can do bottom. And then what I can do here is just sort of click on this and just move it to that little corner. Let's hit F to focus on that. All right, there we go. And I'm going to accept that. Now you can see that my pivot point is placed there. So let's say I want it to move off this way, or you know what? Let's go the other direction. We'll have it go in this way because there's a little bit more wall there. So let's just pivot, and then I'll just kind of grab that pivot and move it over to the side. In all honesty, you could just probably click on left here and then just move it down so you know it's at least lined up. And looks pretty good. Let's go a little higher here. And I'm going to hit escape. And not necessarily perfect, but for now we'll keep that as is. Now I'm going to right click on this box 07. I'm going to go to browse to asset. And on this, I'm going to press the F2 key to rename it. And I'm just going to name this screen door. And we'll, inside of our project here, let's see. Actually, let's go back to browse to assets. We have that. Let's see. In our content folder here, let's create a assets folder. So new folder, assets. And then again, right clicking on box 07, browse to asset, and I'm going to just grab this and just drop it in assets for now, and then move here. Now I don't necessarily have a blueprints folder set up yet, and so let's go ahead and do that as well. So on our content folder here, I'm just going to make a new folder again and just call this one blueprints. And then within this folder, the blueprints folder will eventually hook up this screen door asset, or we'll create a blueprint for this screen door asset inside this blueprints folder. So what I like to do in my blueprints folders, I like to create subfolders, and one's called objects. And that could be anything in a house, for instance, a door. Let's go inside of here. All right, so let's right click here, and we'll create a new blueprint class. And there's a couple different things here. It's like an actor is an object that can place anywhere in the world. There's a pawn, there's a character, which we're going to be using later to create our own character. So we don't necessarily want this to be controlled by a controller, so we're going to go with an actor here. And I'm going to create this, I'm going to name this screen underscore door underscore BP for blueprint. Now I'm going to go ahead and delete this out, and I'm going to grab this screen door blueprint and just drop it in here. Now I'm going to double click this to open this up, and I want to dock it next to my level here. And inside of here, I'm going to go ahead and add a mesh component. So it's custom mesh. And then in here, I want to try to find that screen door. Let's see. Oh, this is the material. I'm sorry. So on our custom mesh, you can see here's our material element. We're looking for the mesh, the static mesh element. So actually, we're not looking for custom mesh. We're looking for a static mesh. Sorry about that. So let's just type in static. And under static mesh, go ahead and select this. And let's create a, under static mesh here, let's find our screen door. And you can see here we are, our screen door. If we go back to our level 01 house, you can see it's in our scene, lined up in our scene. So we'll place that there. And something else we're going to need is a collision box. So instead of our static mesh here, I'm going to rename this to screen. So let's right click, either hit F2 or rename, and name the screen door. And then let's add a, on our default scene root, let's add a collision box. So I'm just going to type box, and it says box collision. And we're going to move this collision box pretty big, so it just kind of encompasses this whole door. Now what we'll do in later tutorials is we'll create like a key system where you have to find a key sort of in the grass to open this up, to open this door. But for now, we're just going to have it where you can walk into it and the door opens like it's already open. So let's go ahead and name, instead of box here, let's rename this as well to collision box. Now, if you're wondering why I didn't make this a child of the screen door, is because I want it to be static enough where when we exit, it'll close. So it's always sort of sitting there. And so if we attach it to the screen door, it's going to move with the screen door. So, oops, we don't want that to be new. We just want that to be we want to attach it there. So now if our screen door moves, we don't necessarily, we have this just sort of waiting until we exit, instead of the second this slides out of the way and we touch it, it'll shut immediately. All right, so now that we have collision, we have our screen door, let's go ahead and create a little blueprint script that will take into account these and set it up so that it finds our character when we walk into it. So go ahead and click on Event Graph here. And I'm going to give myself a little bit of space here by expanding these out. So we've got these 3 nodes here. Now we don't need these 3 actually. Let's just select our collision box, which we created up here. And we have these events off on the right-hand side here that we can use. Now what's nice about using these events is they're sort of like, it's almost like pre-made code that you can use. So for example, there's this onComponent hit, there's onComponent begin overlap. So what that means is as I enter this collision box, see it says collision box here, as something overlaps with this, it's going to do something. And what we want to do is animate that door opening. Now what I'd like to do is, as when we collide it within this, when we walk into this object, over a certain period of time, this door is going to move. So there's a nifty node for that, and that's just called timeline. So we're going to add timeline. And if you double click on that, that gives you access to the timeline. We're going to add a track, and it's going to be a float value track. And what we want to do is within this, we want to go from maybe 0 to 1 second, and we can make it a lot quicker than that if we need to. So let's right click on this, and we want to add a key. And this key, we're going to have it just start at 0. And then what we're going to do is at 1 second, so if I right click on 1 second here, I add a key, you can see, let's go and move it directly to 1, and the value can be 1 as well. And we can play with these values too. Let's see, with both of these, I'm going to right click, let's see, I'm going to click on here, and I'm going to give it like a nice little smooth, you know what, we'll leave it at linear for now, just because it'll be like a straight, kind of a straight shot as it animates. And we can revisit this so you can see the different these different curve values, whether it's setting up auto tangents, so it controls essentially the smoothness of how this curve moves or animates. Another thing I like to do is notice that the timeline is 5 seconds. I kind of want to just do 1 here, so it's just showing me that 1 second of space. And if you turn on zoom to fit vertically and horizontally, it frames it for you so that you can see that and the length of that animation properly. All right, let's return back to our event graph here. I'm going to hit compile and save here. Now the thing here is we're going to be using, we're going to be animating our door using the Blueprint scripting. So grab your screen door, and if you left click and drop it on there and you hit get screen door, this produces a reference to this screen door object here. So now this node represents, here, let me close this. This node represents that screen door. Now let's say we want to set its relative location, right? And what I mean by that is inside of our scene, its current location is here. Now if I'm like, well, I'd like to move it to the right so many units, that's moving its relative location. So whatever its relative or current location is, we're going to take into that account where that is. So the way we do that is you can drag this out and you can type out set relative and you'll find this set relative location. Now you'll notice it's the current location, and we want these to kind of run in tangent. So these execution nodes, if you can grab update, finish, depending on what you want it to, where you want it to be at, you can drag these in and connect it. So say as it updates, we want to check the relative location. Once it finishes, we want to move its relative location to somewhere else. So right now, its current location is whatever the target, this is the target object's current location is. Now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to lerp or animate between two locations. So do you see where it says new track 0 here? I'm going to drag this out and I'm going to type in LERP, and we're going to do a vector lerp, because what a vector is essentially you can have a 3-dimensional vector which takes into account the X, Y, and Z location. So here's 3 different almost you can think of it 3 contained variables that shows a point in space. And when I grab and drop this in here, we're going to be using this to lerp between 2 locations. So right now they're both set to 0 to 0, 0, 0 of the world. So if we go inside of our viewport here and I click on my collision, my screen door here, you can see its current position is 0, 0, 0 within this. So if I go back to my event graph, the current position within this blueprint is 0, 0, 0. So where do we want the next location to be? Well, let's take a look. So if I go back into my viewport here, and I know that that's off in the right-hand corner, and I move this out here like this, and you can see that it's completely hidden here. So that's pretty much where I want it to move. You can see that that is, let's zero this out, minus, let's say 242. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that minus 242, and I'm going to zero that out. So if we go back to our event graph, what we want the next position that's lerping to minus 242. And let's reconnect this update node here. So let's go ahead and compile and save. Now let's go back to the house and press play here. And now when I walk up to that door, you can see that that worked pretty easy. Now, if I leave, I'd like that door to close, right? So you probably guessed that if you go back inside of here, you can see we have on component begin overlap. Let's go ahead and move this up here. And we're starting at 0, then going to 242. Well, I'm going to go ahead and select the same collision box. And I'm going to go down to events here. And another way of doing it is if you select the collision box down here, we went to on begin overlap. Well, when the overlap is over, that means when our character leaves, I'm going to go ahead and just copy all of this. I'm going to paste it here. And I'm just going to resync this up. Now, there are more, a lot better, there is a great deal more optimized ways of doing this, and I can show you that in a second. But let me kind of show you this. So whatever the current position is, let's say 242, or whatever the, you know what, let's take a look at maybe a little bit better way of doing this. So let's go ahead and delete all of this out, actually. And what I'd like to do is give it a delay so that the door doesn't hit our character on the way out. So I'm going to right click and go to delay here. And then I'm going to link this up. And we can give it whatever value, let's say 1 second. Oops, 1 second delay. And I'd like it to reverse. So I'm going to grab this and drop it in my reverse and move that up. And I'm going to compile it and save that. And now when we press play, it should reverse the value. So we walk in, I walk out, give it 1 second, it closes. So we can go into the house, that door closes. And what's nice about this is I'm going to hit escape as we have this saved here. So we can open and close this or delete it however we like. Now, here's the other thing. Say I want to put this exact same door here, like another sliding door here. You sort of have to be conscious of scaling of the door. So what's cool is you can actually just sort of play with this value here. And now when I press play, I can go in this door and open it. I can go to this door, and that slides open too. Now, part of your homework assignment is to think of cool ways to use this, right? So right now, I don't necessarily have windows, but if you want to have it where you can climb up a box or jump on a box and open a window, or the different types of rotating doors, things like that. I'll make another video after this one, just sort of looking at another way to make a door rotate open. One thing that could be cool to add to your project is you could model an elevator and with a key press have the elevator go up. So that could be the next video as well.